What's going on, guys? Finally got a chance to hop back on this bike project. Actually just recently had a bunch of parts come in. Show you that right here. So got a couple of V-bands came in. This is for the turbo because I'm actually chopping the T25 flange off. Nice thing about this is a quick disconnect V-band, so you just loosen this screw up right here, and then you can actually just pop this collar right here and it'll come right off. Got a bunch of Schedule 10 piping from Ace Race Parts. This is for the new hot side. This stuff, I want to say it's 120 wall if I'm not mistaken, or it might be a little bit thicker. I think it's more like 145 wall actually. But yeah, I got a bunch of random bends and whatnot. This stuff is 1.5 inch, Schedule 10 stainless 304. The ID of it is actually, I want to say 1.6 inches or so though, and then the OD is right at 1.9 inches. So for the most part, that'll be all the parts for the hot side. And then I also was actually able to pick this up right here. This is from Maven. My buddy over there, Jared McCombs, hooked me up with a T25 based billet mount. And this is actually something that's coming from more of the race car side of things, because I actually run 2 of these on my truck that I'm building. Some of you guys probably know I'm building a twin turbo Hemi S10 drag week truck, and the nice thing about these mounts is that it doubles as a turbo drain, and it also acts as a support for holding up the weight of the turbo. So you can see these countersunk holes right here. I'm sorry, these let me see if I can pick that up. So you would normally put a pipe in the shoulder right here and butt weld it, and you do that on both sides, and you basically tie those back into the frame. So this is a nice clean solution for a turbo drain and a mounting system for your turbos. And I'll actually be using this on my new Garrett turbo, which is going to be mounted right here. And just to give you guys an example of what I'm talking about, this is the billet mount that Maven Performance supplies. This is a really nice piece. So you can see how it is bolted to the bottom of the drain flange. And then you have these counter bores right here where you would basically insert pipe and butt weld it and then tie it back into the frame. So it's a nice 2-in-1 solution to making a really clean turbo drain / mount. So yep, really nice piece. Shout out to Maven, shout out to Jarrett. And I think I may have touched on this in the past, but I've always been like a form and function type of person. So I'm sure I could have tucked this up a little bit further and basically hit the compressor wheel off in the corner. But I want it to work, but I also want it to look cool. So this spot actually worked out pretty good, because it's nice that the compressor wheel is actually able to face the front of the bike, so I don't have to really worry about debris or anything getting kicked up from the tire and getting sucked in. And then another thing is that it gives me pretty good access to this inlet area, so I can easily put a filter on there. And I was thinking about a turbo guard and maybe just an outerwear, try to keep it low profile. If I need to put a a larger filter on there, like what I ran on my old setup, I think it was a K&N based 6-inch diameter filter, I will do that. I'm even entertaining the thought of maybe getting a piece 3D printed and maybe making like a bolt-in filter maybe. But I think this location should work out pretty good. The only thing that's giving me a little bit of hassle is this internal wastegate, and I want to try to retain that because I really don't want to run an external gate if I don't have to, because it just adds a little bit more complexity and fitment issues to the equation. So if I could, keep everything in one unit, by just running the internal wastegate, that would be ideal. But this thing is taking up a lot of room, and if it really comes down to it, I will delete it. So you can see it's like a bracket coming up off of the compressor housing, and then this is the actual valve right here, or yeah, the actual wastegate valve right there. So yeah, so see if I can get a shot behind here. And then it actually works out pretty good too, because like one of the first things I did is I tried to compress the rear suspension as much as possible just to see if I would have the swing arm travel. And the theory behind this is you would want this to minimize issues with tire clearance. You would want this turbo to be mounted as near to this pivot as possible. So as of right now, I think I have about maybe like 10 inches or so of clearance, measuring from here to the bottom of this T25 flange. And please excuse the ghetto mock-up, because this is just something just to hold it in place, because I don't have an extra set of hands available right now. And then it'll actually be gaining a little bit more space, because like I mentioned, I have this 2-inch stainless 304 V-band right here that will actually be taking the place of this T25 flange. I'm just, I'm a stickler for V-banding everything when if all possible, because it just makes it a lot easier for assembly and disassembly. But the really cool thing is that I haven't received it in the mail yet, but I did order a billet T25 outlet flange that bolts to the turbine housing using these 5 bolt holes right here. And with the way that it's angled, it'll actually allow me to run a pipe right through here in the stock location, which should work out pretty good. So I cut this a little bit more than I needed to. I probably will try to clean it up, because it does look pretty crappy, because this is actually a new tail that I ordered, because my other one got chewed up pretty bad when I was at Silver Lake. So but yeah, for the most part, it clears everything pretty good. It doesn't come close to the chain tensioner. I don't have to worry about that hitting. And like I said, I'm only working with this this temporary I don't even want to call it that, this temporary mounting setup, because like I said, I don't have anyone to hold this, so it'll actually be tucked in a little bit more than it appears right now. So but yeah, I think this will look pretty cool right here. This spot is like, it's almost like it was made for a turbo. But yeah. And then let's see, I also got a inch and 3/4 aluminum V-band. I think this will actually have to get shaved down quite a bit, because I'm running into a slight clearance issue between this actual clamp piece and the frame right here. So yeah, I think this has about 1/4 of an inch shoulder on it, so I have a lot of material that I can remove just to recess the V-band assembly a little bit more. So I think it'll clear pretty good once I actually shave down the backside of one of these V-bands. And but pretty much this space that you see right here is free real estate for a very large air capacitor, or a intake plenum. That's what most of you guys probably know it by. But so pretty much on the single cylinder stuff, the air capacitor is pretty key to making one of these setups successful. I guess the easy way to put it is it acts as like an air reservoir, I guess you could say, and it minimizes on like violent intake pulses and whatnot. So boost will basically already be at the throttle body when the intake stroke is coming up, so it'll have a large volume of air to suck from, rather than just, you know, taking like 1.25 inch pipe, or a pipe equivalent to the diameter of one of those weld L's right there, and just having it, you know, placed right on the throttle body. It's basically a large volume of air pre-throttle body. So the rule of thumb with that is generally you want to try to make a plenum that is about 3 to 5 times the size of the engine cc. So in my case, I have a 450cc engine. I think that will put me like right around 2500cc, but I think I might be able to eke out a little bit more, you know, with the real estate that I have, probably more like 3000-ish cc. So I think I showed you guys in the previous video too, like on the stock setups, there's an actual like a black piece that butts up against this area right here, and it's actually used for the ram air tubes that run behind the side fairings. So I got rid of that because that was chewing up a lot of space in this area right here. It was making things a little bit more complicated for mounting. So one thing that I was worried about getting rid of that too is I didn't know if these fairings would have the same rigidity. So I mean, just with them bolted in using these 3 bolts, yeah, so these 3 bolts seem to hold this fairing pretty rigid. But I did have an idea that maybe I could use the top of the plenum, which will more than likely be in line with these frame rails right here, roof height wise. Maybe I could have like a wing come off on each side with a nut welded to it, and then I could, you know, still utilize the stock 10mm bolts that would normally bolt to that black piece that I removed. So that's an idea. And then obviously the plenum, it'll have that throttle body welded to the bottom of it, and I'll probably utilize these 2 bolt holes right here, which is also used to hold that black piece in place. And this will basically just act as like a secondary tie down for the actual plenum structure. Another thing that I'm probably doing a little bit differently that I touched on briefly in my previous video is the turbo oil return plumbing. So I did a little bit of research, and I basically found a solution that like a lot of jigsaw guys use for turbo jigsaw based projects, and a lot of them are using a crank driven mechanical oil pump that they're using as an oil return pump, and there will have to be some modification made to that in order to get that to adapt to my bike. I haven't received it in the mail yet. I actually just purchased it a couple of days ago, so I'll probably make a separate video on that, because that in itself is, you know, a pretty content heavy subject. So I'll touch more on that later, but the gist of it is that it'll be a mechanical oil return pump that'll be driven off of the crank on the stator side, and it's actually a pretty cool setup, so I'm kind of excited to show you guys that as well. So it basically utilizes these stock threads. I will have to modify mine a little bit, more so for the actual drive spud for the mechanical oil pump. So I'll more than likely end up making a my own crank stator bolt. So the actual bolt that bolts onto the end of the crank to hold the stator on, I'll incorporate a drive spud in that. I believe the one on the oil pump actually uses a 5/16 hex key drive spud. So yeah, I'll probably take a stock bolt and maybe space it out a little bit, or a stock nut and space it out a little bit, and have a 5/16 keyway welded to it, because the last thing I want to do is touch the crank itself. The bolt, it really doesn't matter because you can get those for cheap. So yeah, that's the plan. But all in all, everything is pretty much rolling for this project. Actually just had to salvage another YZ450 header, because you can't buy these freaking flanges by themselves. So basically what I've had to do, like even with my past 2 turbo setups, I have to buy a stock header, which is not cheap, and basically destroy it to the point to where just this flange comes off, because it's a press fit, and then it has like metal overlapping it, which holds it onto the pipe, or it has the end of the pipe overlapping on the end of the flange, which holds it on. But it's an interference fit for the most part, so you basically just have to take a hammer to it. So would be pretty nice if someone, you know, offered like a billet solution to this. So I'll probably actually buy another header and see if maybe one of my friends can make me up some billet copies of it, so that way you aren't, you know, buying a header just to use this flange. So but anyways, I have this bolted on, and one of these tubes will end up getting butt welded to that. It's about the same ID, so all of that stuff is consistent sizing wise. So I could just put one up there for reference. This is just a random piece that I pulled out, but for the most part, it'll, you know, butt up against there like that. And then we might have to do a little bit of trimming on the edge of it, because I knew that was going to be a problem. And by that, I'm meaning the wall of this is hitting one of those nuts. So, I mean, but it's nothing that, you know, a little die grinding can't fix. So anyways, yeah, I'm excited for this setup. And I did put the dirt tire on there because this will be the largest tire that I'll ever run. So I want to, you know, make any clearance adjustments based off this tire right here, because my Supermoto tire is like 2 inches smaller in diameter than this one. So but yeah, should be a lot of progress this week. So I would definitely keep your eyes peeled. I'll be posting on social media, Instagram, TikTok. I'm actually starting to get a lot more active on TikTok again. For a while, I took a pretty big hiatus from it. So yeah, hopefully this hot side will be done this week. I mean, it shouldn't be too bad. And yeah, give you guys another update this week, and go from there.